So we had done the first verse, we were doing the commentaries, and here Shankaracharya was, sorry, Madhusudana Saraswati, we were doing his commentary on this verse. Abhayam Sattva Sansuddhir Jnana Yoga Vyavasthiti. These, giving that fearlessness to others. No, I mean, being fearless is good, but also sort of giving them others a sense of confidence. Sattva Sansuddhi, and we have clarified that you sort of are purifying your inner consciousness, inner mental frame, and jnana. Here, jnana is not any knowledge, but specifically Atma Jnana, Atma Sakshatkara. Yoga Vyavasthitihi, when you are fully established in that state of equanimity, a tranquility. So the first sentence applies to the Sarva Karma Sannyasis, because if you are in samsara, you have responsibilities. Perhaps it's not possible to ensure that Jnana Yoga Vyavasthiti. It's not possible. Very hard. It'll affect your normal course of life. So Madhusudana Saraswati says that the second line, Danang Damasya Jajnasya, Dana, Dama, controlling your senses, and Yajnas, different kind of observations, different observances of different rituals and duties. Swadhyayas Tapa Arjavam. Swadhyaya is having time to read the text, the spiritual text. Tapa, self-discipline, some kind of some exercise, spiritual exercise or pranayama. There are different kind of tapasyas which are there, and Arjava is being honest and straightforward. This is the main thing, and we are trying to sort of break each and every word of these. First line we have done. So he says that Mahabhagyanam Paramhanshanam Falabhutam Daivim Sampadam Uktva. So after having explained what are the qualities we associate, what are the spiritual qualities these people have, what are the potencies they have, what are the powers they have, those were paramahanshas, that means sannyasis. Daivim sampadam uktva tataha nyunanam grihasthadinam. So the people who don't have that privilege to take sannyasa, they still have responsibilities. Sadhana bhutam aha. So doing these sadhanas, one can be a paramahansa. So the grahyastha jivana in a way is actually an intermittent level. It's an intermediate level of spiritual sadhana which prepares one for branaprastha and a sannyasa. So danam swasattva aspadanam annadinam yathasakti sastroktaha samvibhagaha. So dana is that whatever rightfully in a dharmic way you have earned, you would like to sort of divide it, give a little to, let's say that you have a few siblings that are not doing well, or there's a relative, or there's a girl to be married in the larger family, or you want to split it with poorer people in society, or maybe religious institutions, charities. That is dana. Bahirvedi yatta danam. So, that is defined that if you give some dakshina because you are doing some karma, that is not dana. When you do it beyond that ritual space where you're doing some spiritual karmas for your benefit, you are giving some feast to that particular priest, that is not charity, that is not dana. Dana is which is in your secular domain of life. Sastroktaha sambivagaha. Generally, you want to sort of split it or divide it and give a certain portion to the charities as advised in the scriptures for purification of the self. What is Dhamma? Vahi indriya sanyamaha rutukaladi atirikta kale maitunadya bhavaha. So there are certain times where a person is, even if he's married, he has a wife. Of course, if you're sort of having a relationship outside of the marriage, that is Sastra Pratisiddha. Here, even having this with one's own wife, one has to follow a certain scriptural advice. Chakara anuktanam nibriti lakshana dharmanam samuchayartha. So there are different other qualities. Let's say, for example, you should not hurt others. You should not cause any emotional distress. Should not cause any pain. Whatever are nibriti artha. You should wake up early morning, do a bit of japa. All these things you can add here. Whatever is Nibriti Lakshana, which sort of prevents you from going in the wrong direction. Yajnasya, so Sroto Agnihotra Dasa Purnamasadhi. So there are certain Nitya Agnihotras, there are rituals. No one does it these days except in certain parts of South India, maybe restricted circles in certain pockets in India, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, maybe, and certain parts, maybe one or two places in North India, but I'm not sure. Smarto Deva Yajna, Pitru Yajna, Bhuta Yajna, Manusya Yajna, the Chaturvedaha. The Smarta Yajnas, that means the Yajnas prescribed in the Smriti Sastras, like say in the Manusmriti or Jagyavalkya Smriti, Gautama Smriti, there are different Smriti Sastras. So there are, so the Smarta Sastras also they prescribe certain Yajnas. Now here I was saying that the Panchayagya that we had discussed earlier, it's relevant to read it. Adhyapanam Brahmajagya. What is Brahmajagya? That, studying and teaching. Yeah, studying and teaching, that is all kind of Brahmajagya. It's a sacrifice. And then Pitrujagyastu Tarpanam, doing those water sacrifices in the morning, offering water to the forefathers. And then that also includes offering water to the rishis and devatas in the morning. That is what is called Tarpanam. And that is called a Pitrujagnas. And that will also include Shraddhas, which will be specific dates in a year. Homa Deva, so the homas you do, like say, Navagrahas and whatever. Homa is Dravya Tyaga, as that Ishwara, Ishwara Devata Artha Dravya Tyaga. So you have that offering, Indraya Swaha, that is the Yaga. Homa is that putting that materials which you're using for sacrifice, putting that into the fire, that is Homa, and that is Daiva. Balir Bhauto. So what is Bhuta Yajna? You have different kinds of food which is sacrifice. You keep it outside for birds, for animals. Is Bhuta Yajna. Nrijagyo Atithi Pujanam. So you have what is Manushya Yajna? If there is a person who sort of lands up in your house, who is a relative, or could be a friend, or could be somebody who is in need. It also includes people who are on pilgrimages. This is not seen anywhere. Nobody gives any alms to sannyasis or spiritual monks or anything anywhere in India except certain pockets in North India. There is still that kind of kindness in Punjab, Rajasthan, Uttarakhand. So if you are sort of undergoing, you're doing a yatra, you're going, people feed you. They'll give you whatever little they have, but that's part of their culture. But not in other parts of the country. They don't give you anything. South of Ganges, nothing virtually. Brahma Yajnasya Swadhyaya Padena Prithag Uktehe. So Swadhyaya has been specifically mentioned, and Brahma Yajna, therefore just Yajna. Chakara Anuktanam Prabriti Lakshana Dharmanam Samuchayartaha. We are now discussing positive qualities in the Daivi Sampat. And what are these? Dana, Tapa, all these, right? So whatever good things, like for example, you offer a bit of, you should touch the feet of your parents every morning. You can add it. So whatever good thing, prabriti, but positive, spiritual, positive work, you can add it. Etatrem grihastasya, and these are the Daivi Sampat associated with the householder. Swadhyayo, Brahma Yajno, Adrushtartham, Rigvedadi Adhyayana Rupaha. What is Swadhyaya? Somebody might say. Now, you may not necessarily understand everything in the Vaidika Parampara. They are Veda parties and they are Veda Vichara, the people who are interested in Veda Vichara. Yeah, Adhyapaka or Adhyanarata, students of Vedanta and stuff like that. Those who are Veda parties in South India, especially in, say, Tamil Nadu or in Karnataka and Kerala, also in Andhra, they have their own tradition. They study a particular Veda, they pick up their own Shakha, and they continue to recite it till they have fully absorbed everything in their mind. So I was talking to one of those Veda parties. I think in Puri also now there are certain groups they are sort of doing this with certain funding available. Now he says, I said, so what is so special about what you're doing? He said, Your knowledge is in your books, but we carry our knowledge with ourselves. We don't carry any books. It's all in our mind. So they sort of remember, cram the whole thing, and they remember and they recite it every day. Now, how can you justify as to why he's going to waste every day to recite the Veda? Every day he has to do it. So they say that adrushtartham, you will get punya phala. You may not understand it, but if you do Gita chanting every day, or you do a certain stotra or anything in the morning, that chanting itself has a lot of spiritual value. That is what the scriptures say. Rig Vedadi Adhyayana Rupaha. So Rig Vedadi, Adi can include, I mean, everybody is not an expert in chanting the Vedas, but somebody does Gita, somebody does any Purana, even Hanumana Chalisa or anything simple, but you are keeping a little time for that Adhyayana, that is Swadhyaya. In the good old days, including in the generation we should be in their 70s these days, if you talk to them, they always have some time in the day to read the simplest spiritual book, whatever they have. They will read a few pages and they generally speak it, with a loud voice. They chant it. There is in villages in different parts, they will read their texts aloud, because they think that this particular chanting has certain vibration, it has certain spiritual value. That is the adrushtartham. So some punya they will have. Yajna sabdena panchavita mahajagyoki sambhavepi. Even though the five yajnas we just quoted from Manusmriti are possible, असाधारण्येन ब्रह्मचारी धर्मकथनार्थं पृथक्तिः. Why this is mentioned again? Pancha Jagya, the moment it's mentioned, that will all be included. So why have you mentioned Swadhyaya? Because Brahma Jagya includes Swadhyaya. He's saying, look here, this spiritual text is being sort of written for being spoken for everybody in samsara. It's not only for Arjuna, who is a grihastha, but it's also for young boys who may be brahmacharis, and there should be some guidance for them. So Swadhyaya is a very important part of their lives. So the students who are not married, they should have some Swadhyaya. Similarly, when you are approaching your retirement age, when the pressure of work isn't very hard on you, you could give a little more time to sort of do some Swadhyaya, Prithaguktihi, because he wants to sort of underline the importance of Swadhyaya, and therefore it's mentioned again. Tapas Trividham, the three types of tapa, that is the next word was tapas. Sariradi saptadase vachyamanam bana prastasya asadharano dharmaha. So generally, olden days, people after 50 used to, I think 50 or 60, they used to sort of go away from the household responsibilities. They may continue to stay at home, but generally they would sort of stay at a distance and have a new schedule. Unlike these days where people don't retire, after retire they become consultants. But olden days, say they are 60, so they would like to now start a new page in their lives, and they will read some spiritual, philosophical texts, teach a little, that is payback time. It's not about accumulation anymore, but it's about payback. So they will study. So that was the standard method. It was not that the father is still competing with his son to look handsome and young, and sometimes remarrying, and the mothers are also remarrying in 50s and 60s, challenging the presence of their own daughters and putting them to sort of embarrassment sometimes, because the mothers try to look younger than the daughters and the fathers try to look younger than the sons. So here he's saying that in the Vanaprastha, the tapasya, there are different tapasyas which are mentioned, and the Chandrayana Vrata, and the people do different kind of, there are different rituals, different methods. Some people do Ekadasi Vrata, so they don't take food. And there are different other such Ravinarana Vrata, on Sundays they will have some. So there are different ways in which you try to, the senses are very excited when we are living a life in samsara, because the Rajasika qualities have to be sort of kept and maintained at a higher level in order to be fruitfully active in a very busy material life. Like, for example, you are a sports person. If you turn spiritual, you would not be able to perform as a sports person. So you need high levels of energy. But these energy levels have to be sort of reduced and brought down when you are planning to have a phase two or phase three of life, where you would like to be a little contemplative, you would like to be a little more affectionate, a bit of reproductive care at home, not having children, but if there are children at home, you want to take care of them like your grandchildren. You want to educate them a little, take them around for a walk, do a bit of gardening, work with maybe children around where you live. Those sort of activities where you are sort of trying to be a gardener for society, for the upcoming generation. So these tapasyas are kind of mentioned there. Evam chaturnam ashramanam asadharanan dharman uktva. So for each ashrama, he has mentioned specific things, right? For brahmachari, swadhyaya, for grihastha, the dana, dharma, and tapas, and swadhyaya, and for brahmacharis, tapas for the vanaprastha. So, having mentioned in sannyasis first mentioned that jnana yoga vyavasthiti and all that, chaturanam varnanam asadharana dharman aha arjavam. But there is something which is common to everyone. It's not that only sannyasi should have it, or the brahmachari should have it, or the grihastha should have it. What is that? He's saying arjavam. And that particular thing, arjavam is what? Being straightforward, simple. So avakratvam. Vakra is what? Kutila, twisted. So a person who has a twisted approach to things is very complicated. No, it should be less so complicated. Sraddadhaneshu srutrushu Swagyanartha Sangopanam. So there are a couple of things. Say there is a teacher, you are a Banaprasthi right now, and there are some children in your neighborhood, and they come up to you, say, Uncle or Grandpa, can you sort of teach us mathematics? We have heard you are very bright. But then your own grandson or daughter is also in school, and you are training him for a mathematical race. And you have children in the neighborhood, and they come to see you and say, Grandpa, we know that you are very bright as a mathematics teacher. Could you give us some tricks? You don't want to give it. Why? Because you want to reserve it for your grandchild. That is not archavam. That is what is twistedness or kutilata. Therefore, he's saying sadadhanesu sotrusu. So some people are genuinely interested in understanding Shastra, of course. The best part is very few people are interested in Shastra these days. But if there are some people, they come to you, would you teach it to me? In Vedanta tradition, for example, the whole thing is they cannot take any dakshina. That is Shankaracharya's method. And that is how, despite different foreign attacks, these traditions survived because they did not require a university, they did not require buildings. They required dedicated teachers and interested students. And this parampara has continued without any buildings and universities and books or anything. This has continued because all you need to keep this tradition alive is a few dedicated people who want to give it, and there are people who are interested to take it. And then when they meet, the tradition is alive. And that's what he's mentioning, that if a person doesn't want to give and hides it, that is not good. And in each level of life, you would have this tendency to hide and lie and mislead because of insecurity. And this arjavam is like a common good quality that everybody is supposed to have. Prani britti chedo hingsa. So if a person is sort of alive and you want to sort of terminate it, that is hingsa. Tad ahititvam ahimsa. So you are not trying to terminate any living being, whether it's it's an animal or bird or anything. And there are certain special rules. You can't cut a tree which is having a harvest. It's there are flowers and fruits. You can't chop that tree. There are rules even for chopping trees. Satyam anartha ananubandhi yatha bhutartha vachanam. Now this is very important. What is satya? Anartha ananubandhi. Now just imagine there's an innocent girl who sort of knocks at your door, and this little girl who knocks at your door She's helpless, she's anxious, she looks desperate and fearful. And the moment you open the door, she barges in and runs you into the bathroom or the kitchen or anywhere. She's desperately looking for a lady in your house. It's your wife or mother anymore. She just goes and hugs her and cries and says, "Please save me." What happens? She doesn't say anything. She's gasping for breath and she suddenly enters your house, desperate looking for any lady available. She finds somebody, she just hugs her, starts crying, sobbing, saying, "Ma, please save me." Or maybe there is no one who's just there. And she comes in and says, "Please save me." And she sort of runs into the bathroom and locks herself from within the bathroom. And you don't know who she is. And then there are other people coming and knocking at your door after 10 minutes. He's saying, "Have you seen a young girl running? That was my daughter who ran away from home." Or he says, "She was with us. She was my wife or friend and she ran away." Would you tell that fellow, "Yes, he's here"? You don't know who he is. And there are two, three people. And they are overcome by whatever that is. If you're telling the truth there, that is not truth. Our tradition says that is untruth because that is not anartha ananubandhi. That is not free from creating anartha. It is creating anartha for a helpless, innocent girl, and therefore that is not satya. So when you tell the truth, you got to be careful whether this truth is going to hurt somebody or cause any anartha. What is not desirable, what is contrary to your purushartha or somebody else's purushartha, you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't talk about it, shouldn't take that in your mouth, even though that may be truth. Like, for example, if there is a person who tells, "How do I look?" I mean, let's imagine that that fellow is absolutely very ugly. Are you going to say you look very ugly? No, it's not anartha ananubandhi, and therefore you're causing harm to him and to yourself, and you're lying. So you are supposed to say, "No, you look very handsome, you look very good." Now you are teasing me. I'm not handsome, I'm very ugly. You say, "Yeah, I know you are not very handsome, but you look good." That is the truth. Because that is anartha ananubandhi. Yatha bhutartha vachanam. Try to mention what is correct about that fellow, which is positive. Yatha, whatever you see, yatha bhutartha, the way it is, you're going to talk about it, but describe it in a way so that it doesn't cause any anartha. That is the advice. So, Manusmriti, for all the trolling he has to suffer in the hands of all of us, Satyam Bruyat Priyam Bruyan, Na Bruya Satyam Apriyam. He has mentioned that chapter 4, 138. Beautiful advice, actually. That don't tell those truths which are going to cause any pain to another person. Okay. So that's about what is Satya. And then, Parehi Akrosha Tadene Vakrite Sati Prapto Yah Krodha Tasya Tatkala Upasamanam Akrodha. So what happens? What is akrodha? First, we need to understand what is krodha, what is anger. He's saying parehi akroshe. Somebody is trying to hurt you, tadaneva. So he's misbehaving with you, or he's trying to physically get, being hurtful towards you. Vakrite sati prapto yaha krodha. What causes it? Causes in you, what is caused in you because of such atrocious behavior of assert, verbal or physical? You are angry and you are tasya tatkal upashamanam akrodha. You are being able to control that anger. Now, the next question you are going to ask is, what do you do if another country is attacking you? What do you do if you are with your wife or sister or mother and somebody is trying to misbehave with her? What do you do? No, you react. You don't have to be angry, because if you become angry, you will not be able to respond to the situation. You don't have to react. Krodha, sorry for using a wrong word, krodha is a reaction. Anger is a reaction. But being able to effectively give it back to him is a solid response. And that you'll be able to do it in a very discreet way without hurting yourself and without violating law of the land if you are free from anger. You can intervene in the best possible manner, if possible, even using violence for self defense as per law, but as a logical response, not out of anger, because that has created a lot of turbulence inside, which sort of clouds one's thinking, and one might take law into his or her own hands and cause tremendous self harm long term, because you will go to jail if you kill somebody because you're angry. So that upasamanam is akrodha is always desirable, and that doesn't say that you do not have the opportunity or right or privilege to respond in a way which is legally acceptable, and that's part of your human rights. So you should be able to do that. But so it's not about being timid, it's not being servile, accepting injustice. No, we have a right to, otherwise Arjuna will not be able to fight. We are discussing about Bhagavad Gita, which is talking about the right to defend one's rights. Bhagavad Gita is about defending your rights. So he is advised to defend his rights. And why is he mentioned about Akrodha? Because Bhagavan says Krodha has no role in the war. You have to fight it in a professional way as a Kshatriya, as part of your right to defend your rights. It's part of your discipline, part of your dharma. Danasya prag uktasya. Prag uktehe tyagaha sannyasah. And that what is sannyasa? Tyaga. So whatever you are sort of ahimsa, akrodha, tyagaha. So tyagaha is, what is that? So you are, whatever you are offering to somebody, or you're sort of renouncing it. Even if somebody has given it to something to you, and you are saying no, you can give it to somebody else, or whatever you want to give it to somebody, you're sort of parting with it. That is tyaga. Praguktehe tyagaha sannyasah. So that you sort of, you leave out everything, then what do you have? You give charity and distribute your wealth for anything, and you become a monk. Damasya praguktehe santi antakarnasya upasamaha. Now he's saying what? Because earlier dana has been already mentioned. Sorry, I think I did not interpret the way it's written here. Danasya praguktehe tyagaha sannyasa. Okay. So he's saying that we are dealing with the verse number 2. Ahimsa satyam akrodhas tyaga santir apeshunam daya bhute swo aloluptam mardavam hri achapalam. So this is what is the next verse number 2. So we have finished with ahimsa, satya, akrodha, and what is tyaga here. What he's saying here, that dana is already mentioned in the first verse. And now it's again mentioned here, and therefore tyaga is not dana. Tyaga here would mean sannyasa. That for Vanaprasthis they want to sort of take. Damasya pagaktehe, but Dhamma is also mentioned earlier for the Grihasthas. Here Shantihi, that word is there. Tyaga Shantihi apaishunam. So what is Shanti here again? He's saying Antakarana. Antakarnasya upasamaha. So you are kind of tranquilizing your mind, you're pacifying your mind, because you have already sort of doing tyaga, you are doing aparigraha, withdrawal, and you want to sit in meditation, you are into Vanaprastha stage, and therefore you want to pacify your mind. Parasme parokhe, paradosha prakasanam, paishunam. What is paishunam? All that I'm talking against others, what's called backbiting or jealousy, or a lot of trash people talk about others. So porokshe, he's not there, that helpless guy comes to you. Paradabhava apaishunam. Now you're taking a sannyasa, you're going for meditation, you are trying to tranquilize your mind. You have nothing to do with others' weaknesses. You should be focusing on once your weaknesses that you want to sort of remove. Daya. Bhuteshu. Ahimsa already is there. Now we are talking daya. So it's a little positive. Ahimsa is what? Non-violence. What is daya? Compassion. or loving kindness, as they call it. Daya bhuteshu dukkhiteshu anakampa. The people who are in misery, people who are in discomfort or stress, having a empathetic approach, having compassion, helping attitude. That is what is daya. Aloluptva, aloluptvam indriyanam vishaya sannidhanepi avikriyatvam. So um, you have to watch children to understand it better. So you have a pack of chocolates and you allow the children to come and they will fight with each other to sort of take that away from you. So there's this. I remember a few years back, you have these Navaratri at the end of the day in Delhi, people give away some fruits and chocolates and stuff like that to young girls. And then I was in Delhi that time, and incidentally, in Delhi, they do it on the eighth day, many people. On the ninth, when I came out, actually, there were very few children, so I thought I'll go to a temple, find children to distribute it. I was carrying that bag load of fruits and sweets and stuff like that. And then on the way, some boys, little boys and girls, saw me and they recognized this guy wanted to do his samapana, that culmination of that Kanya Pujan. And they all attacked me. They didn't allow me to do that devotional dhanam, to sort of touch their feet, and these girls are supposed to be treated as devi. No, these little boys and girls, they just attacked me and they snatched away the bag, and everything fell on the ground and they just took it off. Now what he's saying exactly, that is that loluptatvam. And he's saying the exactly opposite. All loluptvam indriyam vishya sannidhanepi. So you wanted to have chocolate to remember your childhood, or you wanted to have any sweets or any books you remember. And there used to be a library there when you were in school, those good old days. So the teachers will come with handfuls of books, and will keep those storybooks. The whole question is that the best storybooks are snatched away because this is as per your roll number, so you can borrow any particular book, and sometimes the teacher will say, okay, you pick and choose your book. Now, what used to happen is boys would almost start fighting to pick up their favorite storybook. End of the day, if you are late, you're sort of left with a lot of biographies, and you're forced to borrow those biographies. You'd want to read them, but the teacher says, yeah, these are very good books because you're late. So the storybooks are gone. You pick up some biographies. So this is whenever you have Vishya Sannidhanepi Avikriyatvam. So your mind, your senses, they are not desperate to connect with that Vishaya. That is all Uluptatvam. And then Mardavam. This is a beautiful word. Mardavam is what? Mridu. That softness. Madhavam is that ability to speak in a soft voice, warm attitude, a loving, kind attitude. People say, the smiling face and a very compassionate, warm, welcoming attitude. That is what is Mardham. Akrivatvam. So not having that cruelty in you. Vritha Purvapakshadi Karishu Api. It's quite possible that when you are taking classes or you're holding a class, you're trying to teach or having a discussion, there is a person who asks a few unnecessary, challenging questions, who wants to contradict everything you want to say. This is in the context of those days, these acharyas and brahmins used to sit and have those debates. It's quite possible that one guy, he's just arguing because he's an intelligent guy. He knows you are saying something meaningful, but he wants to pull you down. So Sisyadishu api, and maybe there's a disciple who is a little careless or doesn't execute your advice very well. Apriya bhasanadi vitirekena, but without being harsh with them, you're speaking bodhaitritvam. So you're trying to explain to them, why do you do it? It's not useful. Why don't you be different? There are gurus and acharyas and bosses in offices who are very harsh, and there are bosses who are much more effective without using harsh words, by being a little motivational, bringing in the skills of counseling, and speaking in a way where it's a bit of heart to heart conversation, where the guy sort of engages in a positive way and benefits from your guidance without feeling challenged, without feeling cornered by your powerful presence because you are a superior person. So this is very important for all the senior people, especially parents and teachers and bosses, executives in the offices. Shrihi akarya prabhrityarambhe tat pratibandhika lokalajja. It's a very positive thing. You have that innovation. It's not always bad. So here that innovation is a very positive innovation. He's saying akarya prabhrityarambhe. Akarya is what? What is not purushartha sadhaka. It's something wrong you would like to do. So you have a temptation to smoke in a party, and there are some seniors, some relatives. So you feel, no, I don't want to smoke because they are my elders around. That is kind of thing. He says, Tat pratibandhika lokalaja. You're sort of having a bit of innovation. The others might feel bad. He's saying it's a very good thing to have because that is some brahmata, a bit of, uh, what do you call it? You kind of you're trying to be a little level-headed, a bit peaceful, trying to holding oneself back from expressing. You could be laughing very loud, arguing, or dancing, this, that, and the parties people do. But when you have this kind of a constraint on yourself, because you don't want to sort of upset other people, you sort of pass off as a gentleman, and that's what is mentioned here. Achapalam, what is chapalam? Is kind of restlessness. Achapalam is sort of absence of that. Prayojanam binapi vakpanyadi vyaparai tritvam chapalam tadabhava. There are a lot of people, even though there is no solid need, they would like to sort of move their hands or argue and speak and stuff like that. That is chapalam, that is restlessness. And when you don't have that, that is you're kind of quiet. And then Arjavadeyaha Achapalanta Brahmanasya Sadharana Dharmaha. So he's saying that the word Brahman is mentioned here in a certain social setting, but we have to sort of understand it in our historical setting. Ahisa satyam akrodhas tyagah santirapeshunam daya bhutesh daya bhuteshu aloluptvam mardavam shri achapalam. These are supposed to be qualities of a person who is a Brahmin. That is what he's mentioning, okay? The Brahmin word is not there in the Bhagavad Gita. The commentator is saying there. How do you make sense of it? I would say that whosoever is in a maybe in a white collar job, is a knowledge worker, he belongs to a kind of culture, social milieu where he wants to live. These sort of things would make it easy for us, if we want to belong to that sort of a milieu, to sort of be more easily acceptable. And spiritually, these quality, irrespective of who you are, if you practice, it sort of enhances the possibility of your spiritual realization. Take that word caste out of it, that word Brahman out of it. It's about cultivating a few sattvic qualities. This is Daivi Sampat. Everybody has a right to it and everybody can cultivate. It has nothing to do with where one is born. It's quite possible that these sort of Daivi Sampat were more easily relatable or visible in case of people from a certain social background at a particular historical junction. We do not have to stretch it and kind of in a very rigid way make sense of it the way it's written by somebody who was of a different social context. We don't have that option. It's not relevant at all. So we sort of want to put it, if you look at Ramakrishna Paramahansa, you remember that best of his two of his best disciples, who are they? Both of them were non-Brahmins, wasn't it? Brahmanand and Swami Vivekananda. Both of them were guys. He didn't he didn't care at all about somebody who is Brahmin by birth. He was looking at what are the qualities of this guy. Is he spiritual? Is he actually a Brahmin in spirit? That is what he was bothered about. And that's how he picked up guys very close to him and he sort of trained them who transformed the spiritual horizon, the whole context, the dialogue on Vedanta in this country. So then the next verse is Teja Kshama Dhriti Shausham Adroho Natimanita Bhavanti Sampadam Daivim Avijatasya Bharata. So now we will discuss about that aspect. A little we'll be able to finish that. We have 15 minutes and we have a little to finish. We can finish this. Tejaha, then that is next thing is what is Teja Kshama Dhriti? What is Teja? Teja Pragalbhyam. Now, Pragalbhata. If a person is Pragalbha, what do you think? He's speaking like a madcap. He speaks a lot, no? No, there are different other meanings of it. Pragalbha also kind of refers to a person who is very confident, who is very quietly confident, somebody who is very mature. So here he's saying Tejaha. Teja is not, Sankaracharya also refuses to accept that interpretation that he has, oh, he's very ojosvi, or he has got he's a radiant face, his skin is glazing. No, it's not about that. Because these things can be cultivated. Yeah, of course, if you do a lot of meditation and all, you can have a bit of glaze on your face, and there are different kriyas for that. But here, what is meant here is the subjective, what you can cultivate. So he says, what? Pragalvyam. That is what? Sri Valakadibhi Mudhehi Anavibhabyatvam. So you are kind of not put down. Well, maybe you are among children, you are a father or a mother, and the children shouting, but you're quiet. The most amazing experience I had was about long time back, maybe 30 years. And I was traveling back to Orissa from Delhi. I was a student there. And there was a little Sardar boy, a Punjabi boy, who was about 2.5 years of age. And he was literally jumping on his mother, who was sleeping. And she was in perfect sense. She knew she had a very, you know, a restless son. And this boy was saying, Mommy, you wake up. You have to play with me. And if you don't, I'm going to do this. And he was walking on her. He was playing on her. He was walking on her belly, on her neck, and then on her face. She had no reaction. And she was saying, are you going to sleep or you are not going to sleep? But she had no reaction. I was amazed. I mean, that is Pragalvyam. She's absolutely not bothered. She knows that I have a restless child, hyperactive child, and she says, I can take this much of thing. I mean, he's just 2 years, but I mean, I couldn't take it. I saw that. And the next morning, I told her that you are encouraging a child to be very restless. He says, no, he's a nice boy. He just behaves in a way at certain moments of time. Similarly, it's quite possible that, I mean, if you ever go with women for shopping, you're going to have a bad time because their style of shopping is different from a man's style of shopping. A man might just pick up something and go, but a woman will pick and choose. And if you have gone with your sister or any female colleagues, they take their time. And then if you get put off, you are spoiling their whole experience because they are not reckless. They don't make snap judgments when they are making any purchasing decisions because they run households and they have very disciplined and very worked out ways of doing things. Now you shouldn't get irritated. Similarly, if you're managing a school, if you're a leader and you are dealing with the opposition, well, you know what it means. So you sort of have to deal with it. That is pragalpyam. Kshama. Satyapi samarthe parivavahetum prati krodhasya anutpattihi. What is kshama? There's a little boy who misbehaved with you or said something hurtful or maybe funny, and you could give him a slap or shout at him, but you don't. You're being forgiving. There's somebody who said something cruel to you, and you know that he's ignorant or he's at a desperate situation because of which he sort of used a few harsh words towards you. Now, do you punish him? You can, you are in a superior position. But if you sort of avoid, ignore, you let him go, that is what is kshama. Dhritihi dehi indriyeshu avasadam prapteshu api tad uttambakaha prayatna visheshaha. Dhriti is dharya, sort of being patient. So it's quite possible that you're doing some work, you're in office, you're typing a report, and your head is kind of, you're having a headache and you can't do it, but it's very urgent. Your company has to send that report, so you sort of stretch yourself without reaction. You finish that work. You wait in the office till you have sent out that report. Okay, those who have had deadlines, they know what it is. So you're doing it. Think about the soldiers who are standing at the, at the borders, protecting the country, their countries. So all these, they're saying avasadam prapteshwapi. Even though you're feeling very tired, you sort of retain the energy and continue to deliver. And that is what is dharya. Yena uttam bhitani karnani sariram na avasidanti, so that you sort of ensure that you are not falling asleep, or you are not sort of failing to deliver what you wanted to or you have committed to. Etatrayam kshatriyasya asadharanam. These are the special qualities of a kshatriya. Now, do we want to look at that in the caste, through the caste lens? No. We can actually have a secular interpretation of it. What is it? Depends on what kind of job have you chosen. Are you a police officer? Are you in fire services? Are you in army? Are you in construction business? Okay, if you are, what kind of qualities are required there? The Kshatriya qualities are required. Where you require physical vigor, maybe you are an engineer managing certain things. Once I met one engineer in Bombay, I'll never forget him. So there was some landslide. He was doing an underground intersection, underpass, but it's underground intersection. And I went there because there was some kind of an accident, and I found out he was a IIT graduate, bright engineer. And I talked to him for a while, and I got super impressed. And I said, "Why are you stuck with this consultancy? Why don't you join a big multinational? You're so bright." He says, "Yeah, I don't want to get out of Bombay." And he mentioned two, three malls names, and I said that I have designed and constructed them. On Sundays, I drive out of home with my son, and I show him the buildings and the bridges and stuff like that I have designed and built. It's a matter of pride for me. And this guy was standing there physically because there was a landslide, there was an accident, and there was huge risk of doing work where you have subsoil hydrology. And this guy standing there and working. And you look at his patience, absolutely unperturbed despite heavy traffic, and there are some labor problems, there was an accident. That is the quality of a Kshatriya, isn't it? So it's not about which caste, it's about what responsibility have we chosen. And if you're in disaster management, you are in construction, you are in big, managing big factories. So you have to have these Kshatriya-like qualities, I would say. And therefore, I would say that Teja, Kama, Dhriti, Saucham, Teja, Kshama, and Dhriti. These three are qualities all of us need to have. Certain responsibilities which we want to take require these Kshatriya-like qualities. So even though it's mentioned in Kshatriya Asadharana Dharmam, I would not use Kshatriya here to associate with some caste thing, but with certain responsibilities that require a certain way of tuning our skills and abilities and having the proper positive mental frame to deal with those challenges. Okay. Saucham, Abhyantaram, Arthaprayogadu, Maya Anritadi Rahityam, Nad Mrujjaladi Janitam, Bahyam Atra Grahyam Tasya Sarira Suddhi Rupadeya, Bahyatvena Antakarana Vasanatva Bhavat. So he's saying the next one is Saucham. And what is that Saucham? Saucham is actually purifying your internal consciousness. It's not about taking a bath, of course, that is fine. So, Abhyantaram, Abhyantaram Artha Prayagado Maya Anrutadi Raga Rahityam. So, you are not trying to cheat somebody, you are not plotting anything against anyone, you are not craving for anything, you are not having jealousy. Removing these negative qualities, that is what is Shaucham, purification of the mind. cleaning of the mind, rahityam. Natu mrujjaladi janita. And it's not about taking a bath with there is a soil or water touching your body, so you want to wash it off. No, no, it's not. Bahyam Patragrahyam tasya sarira suddhi rupataya. That is vasanatva bhavat. So here we are specific. Snana and all is fine. You have to also have those qualities, but here specifically talking about the antakarana thing. Tad vasananam eva satvikadi bheda vinnanam daiva asuriyadi sampad rupatvena atra pratipadita yo pratipadayi sitatvad, because we are talking about daivi sampat. We're talking about those spiritual qualities which are kind of angelic, which are godly qualities. So it's not about physical bath or anything. We're talking about something which is subtler, which has something to do with purification of your internal consciousness, which enhances the possibility of your realizing that Brahma Pada, that Purushama Pada, because it's a follow up of the 15th chapter. Swadhyayadi vat kenachid rupena vasana rupatve tad api adem eva. And for example, if you're saying that the way we talked about swadhyaya, right? The kenachid rupena vasana rupatve. So tad api adem eva. So you sort of can include, okay? Uh, if you let's imagine that you are talking about swadhyaya and it is associated also with certain processes of taking a bath and studying and stuff like that, then of course you can add it that that cleanliness will be one aspect added here, but he's very keen on sort of privileging internal purity over external physical purity. If that purity is kind of part of your other good qualities that you want to observe, then it's not a bad thing to look at. But there are other commentators who are also looking at Socha as being cleanly, physically clean. Nothing wrong with it, but he's doing his own specific emphasizing, underlining of purity of mind. It's not a bad idea. Droha. The next word is adroha. So adroha is means not turning violent. Ahimsa was there. Why adroha is mentioned? Droha is kind of associated with mutinies and violent uprising. Some kind of a violent uproar where you take up weapons and fight somebody. Hingsa is much more general. Here it's a specific, specifically underlined expression of violence, and here adroha is absence of that. So because you want to sort of teach somebody a lesson or you want to hurt somebody or you're picking up weapons. So not picking up weapons is adroha. Etada dvayam vaishyasya asadharanam. Now, if you are in the business money, you are an investor, you want to trade, you want to do business, then these are things you have to say socham, adroha, nahimanita. Okay, so you're saying that most important is that socham and adroha. So having you need to have your office very clean, you need to be clean, have a clean mind, and don't be a very complicated person. Have a good mind, and then keep violence out. Don't threaten anyone. Don't get physical with anyone. Try to be a guy who is an expert in negotiations and try to sort of resolve conflicts without taking to any without picking up weapons, anything, because that affects any kind of trade and business. That is vicious, asadharanam. Atyartham atimanita, atmani pujyatva, atisaya bhavana atimanita. You're thinking, I'm more respectable. I'm very puja and others who touch my feet and stuff like that. Tadabhava natimanita pujyeshu namrata. So having a bit of humble attitude, having humility is what is natimanita. No atimanita namrata pujyeshu. Be respectful to seniors and elders and stuff like that. Don't be full of yourself. I am sudrasya asadharana dharamaha. Now, do we take it? No, I wouldn't. What would it mean? Now, if you are in the service sector, now what is he saying? Nati manita. Now, why should you be namra? Very humble, very sweet. Now, if you are a receptionist, if you are a banquet manager, if you are in charge of you are a reception manager in a five-star hotel, or you are a relationship manager, you are a HRD manager, right? You are in these jobs, or you are a what do you call it, public relations manager. You're heading a public relations company. Can you afford to be full of yourself? People will run away from you. The job is to attract people, talk to them, guide them, help them. And therefore, this it's not about Sudra, it's about if you are in the service sector, if you're dealing with people, you're a marketing manager, you're doing public relations, you are a labor officer, any of these things you're doing, you're a public person, you are a public leader, you're a politician. It's extremely important that these qualities, which we Sudra is supposed to be a pejorative word, but look at it in a positive light. If you're in service sector, these qualities are extremely important to be humble, because that is the beginning and end of all business. Absence of that, if people think you're very arrogant, no, they're not going to come to you. And then that's the end of the day for the service industry. अयं शूद्रस्य साधारणधर्मः तम् एतं वेदानुवचनेन ब्राह्मणा विविदिशन्ति यज्ञेन दानेन तपसा अनासकेन इत्यादि श्रुत्या विविदिशा औपायिकतया विनियुक्ता असाधारणः साधारणाश्च वर्णाश्रमधर्मः इह उपलक्ष्यन्ते. Now there is a long debate whether a Vedanti should be also doing karma, whether you should do karma, jnana, samuchaya, that you have to do rituals as well as study. There are certain people who believe in it. Shankaracharya refuses to accept it. All Vedantis refuse to accept that. What they say is, we can accept karma, jnana, karma samuchaya. Is Bhagavan is telling Arjuna that yes, that the children in the path of spirituality who are not very educated, who are not mature, they feel that jnana yoga and yoga, karma yoga are different. But they are one. The wise ones know they are one. In what sense? You do karma yoga for purification of the internal constitution of your mind. Get ready and start doing jnana yoga. Ultimately, moksha is your sadhana. Similarly, he's saying all these tam etam vedanu vachanena brahmana vividishanti. Those who want to know the Atma, how do they know? Jagena danena tapasa anasakena. They want to know the Atma. So these karmas, all these qualities, Daivi Sampat, these are relevant for purification of the self. And when the self has been purified, when you do Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana, it's easy for you to understand what is the implication of Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi, Ayamatma Brahma, etc. Ete dharma bhavanti nispadyante daivim suddham Shuddha Sattvamayim Sampadam Vasana Santatim Sarirabhya Sarira Arambhakale Punyakarmabhi Abhivaktanam Abhilakshya Jatasya Purushasya. So these qualities appear right at the birth in some people. They're not, I mean, these are, of course, we can cultivate, but there some people are born with these kind of qualities because of their Purva Punya. Jatasya Purushasya Tam Vidya Karmani Samanvara Vete. So they sort of they begin all this Purva Prajna cha, and this they have that earlier clarity from their Purva Prajna. They sort of some people are born with a very healthy attitude towards life. They are interested in studies, they have high concentration, they do not pick up fights. How does that happen? Because of their purva, their purva punyas, they have a lot of good qualities from their previous birth, and they're born with it. And that's where this Daivi Sampati is saying, generally you see that with some children, the way they are born, you can see those qualities with them. Punya punyena karmana bhavati papaha papaina ityadi srutibhya. Because punya, even a person has a desire to do punya because he has done some punya karma before, he has papa isha because a lot of papas in the past, because that is there in the soft conscious. He bharata iti sambodhayan suddha vansodhavatvena putatvat tvam, kind of saying, hey Bharata, because you're born in a very astoundingly famous family and you come from a great tradition, and therefore you deserve to be associated with these qualities, and you deserve sort of to have in a very enhanced way this Daivi Shampat. That's how we have sort of come to the third verse, and we'll start the Asuri Shampat from tomorrow. So I'll stop here. Thanks for listening on the YouTube. I'm putting an end to it, and on our on the Google Meet, you can ask me any questions you have, or you'll do the Santi mantras.